All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Paketo working group meeting. Thank you for joining us. I'm sharing here again. Let me see. Link for the agenda and notes. If you have a question, if you have a discussion topic, just feel free to add it there. And also consider adding yourself to the attendees list. Totally optional, but it's nice to see who's here, and if we want to chat after the meeting, that's helpful. All right. Okay, who would like to take notes for today's session? Is there anyone?
I can
Not
do
that
that,
hard.
David. This is Josh.
No?
I can,
All
David.
right, seems
Josh.
like uh I'll be taking notes unless there's an objection. Cool. So next up, new faces. Well, I think last week we didn't have enough time for Till Contactil. If you want to introduce yourself, I'm really glad to see you here and to see all your interactions with the project.
I can try. So my name is Till. I live in Berlin,
Um,
and I'm
I don't
currently.
know. I can't hear you. Does
You
anyone
can.
can hear Till?
I think
I
that
can
might
hear
be
him
on your
just
end,
fine.
David.
Yeah, so it's my issue here.
Sorry.
Interesting. Let me see. Yeah, this is strange. Let me I'll rejoin the meeting because I'm having some weird issues. So I'll be back in a bit. Sorry. So can you all hear me? Yeah, I think so.
We can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Mhm.
Sorry. Yeah, I think I made your intro. Sorry, Theo.
No worries.
But yeah,
Um,
we're glad to have you here.
yeah. So, okay. Yeah. So, yeah. My name is Till. I live in Berlin. We are building. We're building a builder component for our platform, and that's how I started exploring all the different build packs and so on and so forth. And today I actually built my own first build pack, which was pretty exciting, and it worked. So that was a good Tuesday, and it's good to be here.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing. That's great. Anyone else? Not much. Okay, great. Okay, next up, having in mind that this is the first working group meeting of the new month, we try to have an update on the roadmap status. So, I mean, anytime you can just go to the board and see what's in progress, what is done, etc. So, wondering if we should get started with this one. Implement RFC 45 secure runtime environment. Is there any recent update about this one?
I think that the state this is in is that I had gone to every build pack and made changes to those that didn't meet the criteria outlined in this particular RFC and opened PRs. We don't have continuous testing of that fact other than those build packs that are already running on top of Jammy because of the fact that the Jammy build and run user IDs are different. So we'll eventually get full coverage of this once everything has tests that run on top of Jammy. But as it stands today, I think this is technically done, minus the fact that we don't have full-time testing. So I think as soon as the Jammy work is completed, this item will be completed as part of it.
Great. Thank you, Ryan. Any comment? Nope. Right, next up, the Buildpack dependency management improvements.
Yeah, so I was away last week, so I'm not sure very exactly where we're at, but last I checked, this is moving along really well. We've opened up issues on all of the different build packs that have dependencies that come from the dep server, and we've created the first iteration of the workflow that we're going to use. There's a PR open on our Paketo Buildpacks GitHub config repo with the new actions and the new workflow that we're going to hopefully be using. And I think Victoria, not sure if she's here right now, is working on actually leveraging that for Nginx, which will likely be the first dependency that we're able to use the new system for. And yeah, there's issues open for everything, but they're semi-blocked on getting the workflow and everything available. So hopefully in the next week or two, that will be ready. We can start moving over.
Great. Thank you, Sophie. Right. Next one. Implement the RFC 19. All behavior for build pack, set, language, ecosystem, environment, variables. Is there any update around this implementation? Nope. Okay. Cool. Next one, implement RFC 32 reloadable process type. I think it was missing a couple of language families. Check again, but I don't see Dan here. No. Does anyone has an update about this RFC? Nope. Okay. Like I will check with him. Okay. Cool. Next one, RFC, implement RFC 37 remote debug.
So .NET Core is done now, so I can update this. That's the only update so far, I think.
Okay. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I see all the checkboxes for the other languages. I might look into this, but just wanted to check with the group to see where the needs are next for languages. Okay.
I think the most obvious one to do next probably is Node. It's relatively straightforward. It's similar to Java. It just has a dash provide debug ports flag or something when you start the node process. And so it's relatively straightforward for us to like do that, say in the node start build packs, just include that extra set of flags.
Thank you.
All right. Great, thank you. Next one, RFC, implement RFC 38, the support for Cyclone DX and CIF S-bomb. Paketo.
I think that this is actually done. I know that we were waiting on rolling out the reproducibility of the S-bombs themselves, but I actually think that that is in the latest releases of all the build packs, so we might be able to close this one out.
That's awesome. Thank you, Forrest. Cool. So next up, implement RFC 8 Jammy builders.
Yeah, this one is kind of at a bit of a not standstill per se, but we're just trying to reach parity with both Jammy base and Jammy full, which requires conversion of a couple of build packs to have available Jammy dependencies to pull from. So this is just going to be sort of a slow uptick until then. Jammy Tiny is done and all of the build pack list builders exist. So if you are trying to build a builder against the Jammy stack and want to use one of the build pack list builders to test that, by all means.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Forrest. Okay, those are the in progress items in the roadmap. From the ones planned, is there anyone that you are aware it's already in progress?
I think both rename build packs and graceful stack upgrades are both in progress.
Okay,
As
let me put it in here in the notes. I think I should move it here. Yeah, rename and graceful stack. Okay, great.
Is Yarn Berry in flight in any way, like in progress?
Not technically, no. I'd put it down to do the remote debugging stuff and then the stack upgrades. So should be back in progress soon.
Thank you. All right, and finally, the ones that need investigation, we are not sure on the status. RFC 27, is there any update that you're aware about this implementation?
Like a month or so ago, I went in here for common logging and I went to every unknown build pack and checked to see the status of their respecting of BP_log. And I spun up a bunch of issues, basically these issues here that are this, debugging needs to be enabled. And I think once all of these are checked off and merged, then that should be the end of this track.
Wanted to also point out that the implementation of this issue is to enable debug logging, but not all of the build packs actually have debug logs implemented yet. I think we said in some discussion that we wanted to align as a project on what the debug logs would actually entail for consistency. So that conversation still needs to happen. So I've been thinking about an RFC for that, but it just hasn't materialized yet. So yeah, some of the build packs do have debug logs, but they're likely not consistent across the build packs yet.
But I think that means that we can move this from status needs investigation to in progress.
Definitely.
So
Yeah.
if you guys would be interested in working on an RFC around this. So you can, if you want to work on it with me, you can. Otherwise, I'm happy to just like take it off your to-do list.
Great. All right, and finally, RFC 15. Want to distribute Buildpacks by Docker Hub. Does anyone have some update about this one?
The only ones, I think this has just continually been an outstanding item has been the Java and Rust build packs. I don't know whether or not those have made it finally onto Docker Hub. I can follow up with the Java folks and see what state this might be in.
All right, thank you, Ryan. Great. Okay, any other comment about status of roadmap? Any question?
I have a question. I see on the left RFC 230 Python dependencies. Is that something that's publicly visible somewhere? Because I can't seem to find it.
Yeah, which one? Sorry, RFC
Right
230?
there. Yep.
Yeah. Let me see. Yeah, it should be there. Let me point you the. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Tag link. There is. Awesome. Thank you. Anything else? Nope. All right, so time to move to the next item. We'll have some time to check on outstanding RFCs. Real quick. Yeah, first one being the new features checklist.
I've drafted that. You can skip over it.
Yeah, I think so. Next up, publish images to ECR. I think the most recent status was pending on Emily. Talk to the AWS folks. I don't see Emily here, so we can skip the next one, right? Okay, the RFC to include libs to tiny that are needed for nodes. There were some recent comments and there was some discussion around this last week, but wondering if there is any update since last week. Nope.
I think after the conversation, we haven't gotten to it yet, but there's another RFC related to a stack that's a Scratch-based stack that's coming up that maybe addresses the size concern here, which I think was my only outstanding concern. I don't know of other folks who had other concerns specifically. But then I think that puts this all back into the stack maintainers' sphere of influence. Like I don't, as a steering committee member, have concerns with what's proposed here.
Is the one open point that is still there is that we should use Paketo's channel to communicate with the community to figure out if node users have a particular opinion on this. But maybe if now the size things are no longer concerning and it's likely that this gets merged, it's unlikely that there will be a node user saying, no, you must not do this, right? So that probably rather, it could push or not push in the direction of merging, but if that's already close to done, then maybe we don't need to reach out for this particular one. Well, this was the other outstanding thing.
Sorry, just for some clarity, for the RFC that's close to merging, do you mean this one or the other Scratch really? I haven't.
No, it sounded like the opinion was rather going in the direction of merging this and going forward of adding those dependencies.
Okay, cool. I'll take another look.
Okay, thank you. Next one, an RFC about builder config. We had a long discussion last week. I don't see Sam here. But wondering if there's any update, any comment about this proposal?
I hadn't checked on it today, but it looked like last week there was actually some reasonably quick response and progress being made on the CNB side for this particular thing. So it may be that we just don't need to have this RFC if the CNB folks are going to be implementing it at some point, but it's worth keeping an eye on.
Okay. Okay. Great. Thank you, Ryan. Next up, the add scratch back RFC.
Yeah, so Rob is not here today to present this, but I can do my best Rob impersonation minus a British accent. The thing that was discussed last week as a possible mitigation for the size issues that we're talking about for the tiny stack addition of the node libraries is hopefully addressed in this particular RFC. The idea generally just being that we would again build against at build time the base build image, and then we would create a stack that is very similar to the tiny stack, but would only contain a couple of packages, which David, I think if you scroll down, they are TZ data and CA certificates. The reason for these is that they're used very, very commonly across lots and lots of different libraries. And we'd want to maintain some amount of compatibility with those libraries. We view these two packages as kind of like the minimal set of things we could possibly put on an image beyond just having it be from scratch. So please take a look, see what you think. Rob wanted some feedback about the name, if we should go with scratch or teeny tiny or minimal or something along those lines. I think his concern mostly was that if we do install these two packages, it isn't really technically scratch. And I think that may be confusing to some users. And so he just wanted some feedback about what a name for this kind of thing could be.
I've added a comment to that in particular. I just realized right before this meeting that this was a pending comment still, like from last week, and I released it right before the meeting. So one thought was like the distroless community has static for Go as one example. So it's I think static base and then Java and Node or something like that. Maybe something, if that is still confusing because it's not distroless, then maybe tiny static could be something. A landing there would align nicely with a potential tiny Java and tiny Node stack if we ever invent something like that. So that was an idea here. And I think it is self-explanatory, even if these other stacks either don't exist now or will never exist. So tiny static still makes some amount of sense, I think. But yeah, Scratch is a bit confusing. In particular, if, who knows, we actually have a reason for later Go for something that is really just Scratch, and even the rest, like CA certs and others, comes from I don't know what, an extension or whatever.
Right, thank you. Any other comment? Nope. Right, next one. Well, Mark 51 is implemented. Yeah, I believe
This
that's
sounds like a tiny
I
one.
merged that. I already merged it.
Yeah, great. Okay, new dependency strategy for .NET.
This doesn't need to be discussed for too long in this open, like working group. This is a proposal on what to keep, what to remove from Paketo, keep, remove, and add to Paketo hosting for .NET Core. I guess a couple things to point out is that VS Debug currently doesn't have a strategy because it is very new and we are kind of just pulling the dependency as it stands. So I have sort of had to add a strategy for that. And then this .NET Core ASP.NET Core runtime dependency is contingent on RFC 0006, which is a change in the architecture of .NET Core to eliminate two different runtime build packs and merge them into one. So I am treating it as a new dependency that's being pulled in, and it kind of simplifies the dependency strategy that .NET needs. So yeah, that's all I want to call out on that.
Great. Thank you, Forrest. Any comment about this proposal? Nope. All right, next one. Again, a new dependency strategy for Go. Seems like it's similar, right?
I just put this forward so that we could have it at the working group meeting and
Okay.
be relatively straightforward about it. It's 2 hours, put it in 2 hours ago. Basically, Go has one dependency, and that's Go. We can pull Go from Go's website. I have a POC PR that shows that we could do it in the current existing configuration that we have. It's all pretty straightforward. So I figured I'd just put this paragraph in so that we don't have to let it languish for, like 5 days before someone looks at it and it has to show up at a working group meeting before we really want to merge it. So yeah, that's it.
I have a comment on that. So we were messing with something very similar internally, and I think I mentioned one of my colleagues was talking about doing multi-arch at the same time. Would that be something that we wanted to discuss in this RFC here, or is that something you want to do separately?
I don't think that we have. I don't think that we necessarily are looking to do multi-arch in the same RFC. I think we'll probably do it in a pretty similar way, but I think that that's going to be an added complexity to this that we can just fix with another RFC down the road when we have more multi-arch support in general.
Okay, cool. So do you plan to merge this quickly then, or is that going to be like a longer term thing?
I was imagining that we're going to merge this quickly, and that's just us sort of shuffling the responsibility for who is hosting our dependency, moving it from us to someone else.
Okay.
Which in this case, I guess is Google, but.
Sounds good. Okay, I guess then the last question is, should we create an RFC to propose the multi-arch approach that we're thinking about?
For sure. I would love to not have to think about coming up with a multi-arch approach to dependency management. So if you guys already got something cooking, by all means.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Jericho. Your proposals are more than welcome. Awesome. Thank you. Any other comment about RFC? Any question? Nope. Okay.
I've got one question to the overall dependencies things. Like I think one definite pro of hosting dependencies ourselves and building them was to know something about where they are from, right? Are we looking into what kind of verification possibilities the originally hosted things like the providers provide or might provide? Like, I mean, the whole supply chain security wave is going through the community with Kubernetes. I think in the latest release, actually signing all the images, they might actually build up some pressure that Go has actually something that is verifiable. I mean, that would be a fight that is inside Google, so not that unlikely to win. Do we have that on the radar? Any ideas like that, or are we just like? I mean, I guess we can just wait for now. I mean, verifying with a SHA is probably good enough for now, but like it might make sense to be like at least some like have some open eyes with these regards.
It's definitely something we think about. There's a bunch of different mechanisms, from like some sites that don't even do things like publish what a SHA-256 checksum of the download is, so you can't verify what you're getting is actually what you're downloading. Some of the folks do like post those things publicly, so you can view them. And then, you know, there are folks like Nginx who go even so far as to say like the actual download is going to be like GPG signed, so you can like get our keys from some other location that you trust and verify the actual download, that it's like was posted by someone who owns the private GPG key on the other end of that. But that's all like, you know, independent open source communities choosing different paths for how to do those types of things.
Sure.
Hopefully, I think that like in the rush as a software industry to try to like clean up the security of the software supply chain, there will be some standardization around these types of things, and we're definitely open to adopting whatever the like strictest level of security is for downloading those things. It's something we're keeping an eye on. We already do in most cases for the stuff that we host ourselves, and then once we host it in some location, we use checksum verification just to make sure that what you're getting in the container is the thing that we actually hosted. But as we move upstream to say we're going to consume something that comes from, say, Google, we need to do a better job of making sure that Google's not maybe switching the bits out from underneath you at the time that you actually go to download the thing. So yeah, we're definitely thinking about it. We'd love input from other folks who are also watching that. You know, if you see things and we could be doing a better job, like please let us know.
No, actually on the side, I just opened the Go Downloads page and there's nothing. So at least there's nothing prominently positioned.
They have like a JSON payload that you can get, and I have not checked there to see if the SHA-256s are posted at least on that particular version of the release site.
On one of the, at least one of the Go Download pages, the checksums are like in the same sort of HTML table posted alongside with the artifact that they're linked to. I know that that's kind of weak, but you know, it's I guess not nothing.
Yeah, that's true.
Thank you. All right. If there is no CMV update or question, we'll move to the next one. I would like to cover. Project update. There's a new survey around trying to agree on a new timing for this meeting, for the working group meeting, in part to accommodate our community in EMEA. Just mentioning Jan, Till, and many other contributors and Paketo users who are in Europe. And this timing is complicated. Right now it's like, I don't know, 7 p.m., almost 8 p.m.
It's 8, like 8:30. But to be frank, I just declined the Doodle invite because I wasn't able to add other timeframes, because I'm much more like I prefer 8 to 9 because that's when my kids are in bed, rather than having something between 5 and 8. So I won't join if it's between 5 and 8 because that's family time. So maybe then I'll join monthly to the roadmap discussions, but definitely not weekly. So that's I am in EMEA, but I prefer this rather than having it earlier. And I guess anything that would fit my schedule in terms of when I have usual working hours would be pretty early for folks over on the West Coast. So I don't know
we appreciate that. Now that you brought up this,
there was no possibility to add any other proposals for timings. So
Yeah, that's weird. I will also put a link there and probably in the Slack channel, simple step by step that will show you how to add more options. I just put there some options that are possible, but you can also suggest other options. And yeah, now that you brought up this more than valid concern, we want to explore the possibility just to open our doors for other folks. Thank you. Next up, again, quick call to join the mailing list. Last week we released a new issue of the community newsletter. You can also contribute to the newsletter and join the mailing list using the link there. All right, finally, open mic questions and discussion topics. These first two were carried over from last week. I don't see Sam here, but it was about the build layer size and possible solutions. I think this goes back to a Slack thread. She's here. So wondering if you want to expand on this discussion right here. You want to have a read, give it a read to the full thread, a lot of content there. Is there anything you'd like to add or comment about this?
Sorry, yeah. So my question, I haven't had a chance to read through this entire thread, but in scanning it, I see a discussion of like duplicates of layers, which I was surprised to see because it was my understanding in the past that there was a bug in Pack that was causing there to be like duplicated layers, and then that bug had been resolved. So does anyone have context on like what we mean by duplicates here and how much of a problem that is?
I don't think this is like strict duplicates. This is like, there are two versions of the proc file build pack, and they're just two different patch versions that are nearly identical. I think that is maybe what is meant by duplicates in this case. The mitigation being like, we should better align on releasing build packs such that all of them contain the same version of the proc file build pack. So we don't have, say, 3 or 4 different versions that are just consuming extra layer space that don't need to be. The other mitigation that I remember being discussed was like squashing the stack into a single layer. So the build and run image is getting squashed. And then the other one, which is kind of out of our hands, but we could contribute to the conversation and maybe the implementation, is around some sort of functionality that would allow us to squash builders in some sort of configurable or meaningful way. Whether that be like the image gets built with layers up to 99 layers or 120 layers, and then after that, it's just one big squashed layer with everything else that remains. Or maybe there's some sort of configuration file you can pass to say which layers you want to squash together. I don't know what that might look like, but that was another proposal that was brought forward.
Right, thank you. Any other comment? You can also
I guess more general question, is that possible right now from the outside to say I want to squash 2 layers together? Because that would probably fix a bunch of like issues in the PHP and composer space.
I think so. I have to look at one of the libraries we use to do this, which is like the Google Go Container Registry library. I think basically what we would do is we would like build a builder image that's actually like maybe too big or has lots and lots of layers. And then we would like squash that in some sort of way into an image that has a subset of those layers, or sorry, where the layers are squashed together so that there aren't so many total layers, but the content would remain the same. But off the top of my head, I would need to go look at that library to confirm that that's still possible.
All right, thank you.
Great.
Sorry,
If you
just another question on that. Till you mentioned that it would make things a lot easier in the PHP and Composer space. Like, was there something specific you could point out that it would help?
Not sure how to explain that, like in an elevator pitch kind of setting, but
Okay.
essentially the way libraries are installed right now with Composer is kind of contradicting to how it's being used everywhere outside of Buildpacks. So there's a bunch of really weird edge cases and bugs with things that are not found or just don't run. When you install some of the standard frameworks like a Symfony, for example, or suppose a Drupal, or I guess almost anything that's Composer based, like think of like I don't know, like a WordPress even, or a Typo 3. So I mean, like these are all like systems no one wants to run, but people still do. And they have like all these weird issues that are basically due to the vendor packages being in another layer, or I should say like in another directory than the workspace. And your, I'm making air quotes, application code. So that's kind of like what I've been like looking at, or like trying to figure out if I can influence that from the outside, like when I run tag, for example. But it feels like it would be a lot easier if I basically redid that with like maybe another build pack approach. I don't know. That's why I was asking about the squashing of the layers. I'm not even sure if like squashing is the right word, or I mean, like I just started looking at this like 2 weeks ago, so take that with a grain of salt. But yeah, does any of that make sense? I'm rambling a little bit.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've also seen some of the stuff you've done that you just referenced on the PHP repos. So yeah, that's helpful to know.
Yeah, and I mean, like I'm happy to write the code for it, or at least to write tests for it and stuff like that. I know like it's a beating to support all of that. So like I don't want to complain, so I don't want to come across as like complaining on stuff. So thanks for listening.
Thank you, Till. Great. If you have any further comments, please go ahead to Slack thread and you can continue the conversation there. Great. Next up, this particular item refers to the builder config RFC that we already discussed last week with him. So skip that one. Also, Buildpack renaming from Dan. I don't see Dan here, but not sure if someone wants to discuss this.
I think I've seen a couple of PRs being opened from Daniel, so I guess this is rolling. Like I don't know how far it gotten, but I've seen GitHub notifications.
Right. All right, so that will leave us some time for the next one big topic: reproducibility versus security versus convenience versus anything else.
It's like I just like I asked a question on Slack, but like I noticed that the run image in the builder tomls is like referenced as latest, which looks a bit odd when we look at reproducibility, because like every run with the very same builder actually can lead to very different application images. And like on one contrasting aspect, like I mean, reproducibility is just one dimension, and I'm not even sure if we should fully or if we should fully go for like accommodating reproducibility the most. Like, I mean, maybe secure by default is better than reproducible by default, although reproducibility is important. But then there's this, for example, odd thing like the default timestamp is epoch 0, which is just like very inconvenient. And it's a compromise made in favor of reproducibility. So maybe it's time to set back and think about these dimensions again and think for what we want to optimize for. Just one example, I guess reproducibility is maybe really some kind of, and then, well, not necessarily afterthought. It might be that I have the requirement to be able to reproduce a very specific image, to verify it has really been built from this source, but maybe I can actually, or could actually spend some time to get my setup figured out. So if I would just pack build something with all the kind of every image to latest, timestamps to now, and I don't know, whatever else, and pack would just spit out, like, if you want to build the very same image, here's your pack command. Adding source epoch should be set to the very same thing you just had. Add the run image parameter to the very specific image that was used for that build. If it spits out this, and I have this in my log file, I could even store it somewhere as a, this is how I do reproduce it. And maybe that's even good enough from a perspective of reproducibility. But just in general, it looks a bit like there are some aspects where we optimize in favor of reproducibility and some others where we don't. And like, I mean, either an image is reproducible, meaning I can build it again and get the very same digest, or it's not. So it's actually either I have everything towards reproducibility, or all these pieces don't really help because they are not reproducible. If it's not the very same digest, it's just not the very same digest, right? It's a binary thing. I don't know. Interesting to hear your thoughts.
Thank you, Jen.
I think I would
Any
agree with
comments?
this. I don't think that there's any reason why we couldn't make the run image be like SHA referencing instead of referencing a tag that changes.
Do we have any historical context on why that was like implemented the way that it was initially? I remember that being like explained to me or just like that being told to me as something that we do in the builders when I joined the team years ago, and I don't remember now our rationale.
I think it's maybe twofold. One of them is that hard coding to a tag that floats is simpler implementation wise. And then the other bit is there maybe is like some minor amount of security benefit stemming from the idea of even if you had an old builder and newer run images may have come out, you are then still basing your app on top of that newer run image because the tag is floated forward to the newer version that's been released, rather than maybe being locked back on an old image that now possibly contains a CVE. But this goes counter to the concerns of reproducibility, right? Hence the versus part of the comment.
Plus, I mean, reproducibility is a kind of an interesting thing with Buildpacks anyway, that it's, although everything you're doing in Paketo can try and make it as reproducible as possible, if you built it via 2 different platforms, you will get 2 different images. Because little things like obviously the path for where all the stuff is stored in /layers or /workspace is configurable by the platform. So inevitably, if you build the same image by the platform that I wrote originally, I called output. I called my workspace folder. Come on, brain. Called my workspace folder output. So every image I produced had different hashes on it to the ones that were produced for the same thing via pack, because that path was embedded everywhere in everything. So there's very easy ways to end up with that. And the other point I wanted to raise on that is that don't forget that when Docker files come out, which they're rolling along very soon from upstream, that the run image is configurable via a Docker file that can be output via an extension. So, you know, I mean, arguably, if it's possible to specify a run image via SHA hash, then you should be able to do that there as well. But it's just worth noting that, you know, that the stack may not be the only thing that's in control of which run image you end up on.
Yeah, I think the thing we can control is like, given some reasonable set of constraints and given the fact that something is operating maybe in its like default configuration without folks having gone and done extra things to override whatever those defaults might be, that it behaves in some sort of reasonably reproducible manner.
I mean, the extensions, it's actually like, it's a bit in the responsibility of the builder provider, right? To either include extensions that really make up for reproducibility in terms of fixing the run image they provide there. Interesting piece is the one about the platform. So actually the CMB spec doesn't really allow you that, what you might actually want to have, right? If you're a CI/CD system and you might want to verify that something is really that one thing and would actually use Pack instead of setting up a CI/CD system for this small verification. That's an interesting aspect. I wasn't actually not even arguing for we should strive for reproducibility. Rather, we should think about these aspects. I guess reproducibility is an important thing, but as I try to explain, I'm not sure if the default use case is I always build my images twice and then compare the digest, right? It's more like I might need to prove to an auditor that I can rebuild the very same image, but I will most likely only do it if an auditor tells me that I now have to show that it really works. Otherwise, how likely is it I'll actually need to reproduce the very same digest? Not that much, but it's like, it's a property that is very prominent on the Paketo and Cloud Native Buildpacks pages. So maybe this is a longer discussion, or would be a longer discussion if we would get off that. But as I said, like reproducibility, yes, but maybe it's really not the thing we should strive for to do by default, because every tiny little piece, the S-bombs as another example, right? There's like, it's a bit clashing, right? It's like, I've even seen there were some arguments that somebody was actually arguing that these are orthogonal problems if you go for writing like a bomb for something and have something that is reproducible. So there was not like the site, I think it was on the, was it the Cyclone DX side, wasn't very supportive of the idea that maybe these timestamps should be set from the outside or other things. So maybe that's a sign for rethinking this. But I think that would be, or would have to be, a longer process, maybe even reaching back to upstream Cloud Native Buildpacks and like get some thoughts in on that. So maybe it's not the thing for optimizing by default, especially because it's hard. Every bit that is different makes the whole thing a failed approach.
Okay,
I
thank you,
think
Jen.
from our standpoint, there may be some also advantages to support in that when someone comes and reports like, oh, here's the builder I built against, it's maybe a little bit easier for us to reason about what actual run image they ultimately got, if that was something that was hard coded to a particular SHA, rather than something that could float and would be different for any given user depending on when they built the application.
Just one.
Sorry, does a rebased image record that?
Probably as well. It just becomes like extra information. We have to like just trying to like streamline and simplify that like information gathering process, and like the numbers of sets of combinations of things you'd have to actually like try to do in order to like reproduce an image. So like if you had a floating run image and a user is now on like latest run image, but that's not what the builder was, you'll have to go and like download the builder, but then like modify its internal metadata so that you can say like use this run image or specify that particular run image when you go to rebuild the application using like an override flag. It just becomes like a slightly more complicated process.
I mean, for what it's worth, for our particular use case, I'm still thinking whether we will go for recommending to use the floating tags or actually use something like OSPO renovate, like renovate or something else to have very fixed versions, but a process that sends you PRs for making sure you're on the latest version. But then it's actually either you have a change in the build pack, and if that breaks, it's apparently for bumping the build pack, or you don't, and then it's clear it's not for bumping build packs. So I'm not sure on that one either. We will at all use the floating tags for anything, like even builders and build packs. I guess that's another point.
All right, folks, any other comment? Sorry. No, if you feel this particular topic needs further discussion, or we want to open it up for people outside this conversation, you can go ahead and create a discussion, a GitHub discussion, and we can keep contributing to the conversation there. All right. Okay, I think we are almost at time. That's great. Thank you all for joining this session. Thank you for your contributions, and hope to see you next week. Goodbye.
See you. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.